Hi race fans, I'm Elliot Cames and welcome to the NASCAR Cup Dates Friday preview show. This week we'll be talking about Kyle Larson moving a teammate for the win at Watkins Glen, Project 91 and the 7 nationalities, the wet weather racing in NASCAR and the regular season being wrapped up already. Now I do need to get my co-host in here, so Dan, how have you been? What do you think of the race just gone?
Hey Elliot, man, thanks as always for having me. Always a pleasure to be here on the show with you. And this week was the Glen, and it was pretty exciting almost the whole way through. There was definitely something going on in all 3 stages to love. I personally thought stage 1 was the most exciting one out of the bunch. But there's a lot of good and bad to take away from this weekend. Spent the day with my father that day. We used to be teammate rivalries for a little while. He was a big Mark Martin fan. I was a big Carl Edwards fan. We used to butt heads, but now that I've kind of found Chris Buescher, he found Christopher Bell, and now it's all starting to come back, and it's feeling good again, man. But, thank you a ton for having me here, buddy.
Okay, so we move into our first topic, and that is that Kyle Larson goes back-to-back at Watkins Glen, sweeping the weekend, but he did move his teammate into turn 1 after locking up the brakes. Chase Elliott didn't say too much during his post-race interviews about the incident, but he did cut a reporter short mid-question. Something, to be fair to him, we haven't actually seen that much out of. So, do you think Larson was right to be moving a teammate? I mean, he was aggressive, and I do believe Chase left the door open by restarting on the outside. But I'm interested to know what you think. Do you really think that frustration is warranted from Chase?
Yeah, Kyle Larson's move. I'd say it's fair, but it ain't clean. Would I abide by it? Not so much. Am I against it? Oh no, I want more of it. That seeing these two starting to bump heads, that could only be good things for the sport. Maybe not so much for those two guys, but the more and more they go at it, the better and better it looks for everything. Since these are like the 2 biggest juggernauts in the sport, and they just so happen to be teammates. And I never really looked at them as like a buddy-buddy type thing. I never really looked at them as enemies, kind of like frenemies in a way. But now it's almost like something's kicked. Playoff mode's here. Champions now going at it. And I'm starting to feel a bit more of a grudge match going, trying to say, okay, who's the main guy at Hendrick? Who's going to be the one to come out on top and saying, yeah, I'm definitely the one spearheading this operation? Now, I'm pretty excited about just seeing what this is going to happen with these two. But, Chase was not too happy. He made it very clear. You could tell he was obligated to go through that interview at the very end of the race. And I think Hendrick's just sitting there like, just watch what you say, man. We don't need a controversy right now. But, he conducted himself as well as he could. He was justifiably in a position he would rather not be in. And I want more of it.
Okay, we move on to the wet weather racing. I personally believed it would make the race a lot more interesting than a dry track. But the track dried out very quickly. Everyone switched to slicks. And it went back to a regular road course. Now, should NASCAR have gone out earlier in the race, earlier in the day, and had this light sprinkle of rain to keep the track somewhat wet? And should cup cars be adapted for road courses to accommodate for this, in the event we do have somewhat heavy rain?
Yeah, we got to see these brand new cars on wet conditions for once. And they didn't disappoint. They are definitely all they're built up to be. You could tell there's a lot of the GT car inspiration underneath the hood and underneath the body of these vehicles. Wet weather tires did a great job. I am completely in favor of NASCAR pushing the start back a little bit. Sure, it may suck to watch that, but you don't want to have another Circuit of the Americas. That was a bad deal all the way through. But it gives rise to a whole new problem, though, in my honest opinion. Stage racing on road courses. They need to fix this, especially in a case where wet conditions are a factor. If you look at the other top divisions in racing, IndyCar, Formula One, GT, whatever you want to call it, they don't have stage racing whatsoever. And the nature of strategy evolves so much more over time in those divisions when you don't have to worry about a stage break. when it's just full out and you can really try and plan accordingly based on the weather, based on your tires, how the track's changing. There's a whole serious dynamic that goes on with road courses that you just don't get when it comes to an oval track. NASCAR needs to look at stage racing as a whole, how it affects how they're trying to push forward with road course racing, how they can maybe change up the points to do away with stage racing specifically on these tracks. There needs to be a change, but in terms of the start, they did good. I don't want to see another wreck fest. You don't need to have all those torn up cars coming into the last half of the season. Well, the last section of the season, my apologies. But yeah, I'm completely in favor with them pushing that back, and I love the product we had from the racing aspect at the very least.
Now, there was plenty of representation in the field this past week, showing many different drivers are capable of coming to the Cup Series, competing at the top level. Now, obviously, the leader in this group, Kimi Räikkönen, F1 2007 champion, 21 race winner. Okay, it was equipment based, I'll give you that. But it opens a door, it's putting NASCAR on a global scale. So is there anyone that you'd really like to see compete in the NASCAR Cup Series? I mean, mine personally, Daniel Ricciardo. If we're going from the F1 standpoint, yes, Ricciardo all the way. I feel like he would just fit in perfectly with the culture of NASCAR.
Oh, and I adore Daniel Ricciardo. That man is a treasure in terms of all auto racing. He is an extremely happy person, and it's almost contagious watching him go. But yeah, we definitely had a whole smorgasbord of just different cultures converging onto NASCAR, and I think that's the demographic they are really aiming for. I couldn't be more happy about that. Stock car racing is a phenomenal sport, and it reaching a global level, that's what NASCAR wants, that's what it needs. I'm personally in favor of them trying to experiment with bringing actual NASCAR to other countries, but that's a topic in and of itself. Who do I honestly believe we should get in NASCAR? I'm going to meet your number 3 car with somebody else who drove the number 3 in the past, and that is Helio Castroneves. Watching him in SRX was an absolute treat. He is just as happy, if not more so, than Daniel Ricciardo, and I love watching that man work. He is an absolute inspiration. Every time I see him going, I just genuinely feel as happy as that man is behind the wheel. I think he would do fantastic in NASCAR, at least at a super speedway level. If you bring Project 91 back, put him in, I would definitely love to see what Helio Castroneves can do behind the wheel of a real stock car.
Okay, and finally, the regular season has been wrapped up. Hendrick Motorsports go back-to-back. Kyle Larson last year, Chase Elliott this year. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about Kevin Harvick being the one to fear. But what about Chase Elliott being so consistent through this regular season? Should he be someone, and should the whole Hendrick stable have a close eye on them? I believe they should be under a microscope.
Yeah, Hendrick dominance is something that I almost feel like is the norm. It's expected. Jeff Gordon really got that ball rolling, and I don't think it's ever stopped. It may have slowed, but it's never lost its complete momentum. It's always been moving forward, and they're still at the top of the game. They're still at the very top of the food chain. Oh, for sure. It's definitely at least going to be Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. Byron and Bowman, I think they may make it to round of 12, maybe at least one of them in the round of 8, but that's where their story ends. Kevin Harvick, yeah, dominant force. I think he has what it takes to get in the top 8 at the very, very least. What more can you say about Hendrick? They are the standard. They are what people aspire to be in NASCAR, the 4-car dominant team that comes in every week. And if you're not seeing their cars in the top 10, you almost feel like sometimes they're doing something wrong with the level of equipment they had. Mark Martin said it best when he transitioned to them back in 2009 from his shift how it was with Roush and a couple of other teams he worked with. He said it's like working for NASA. And that is just the level that Hendrick operates at normally. And now on to a brand new segment of the show, What to Expect. So, what can we expect from Daytona? Firstly, the big one. It's not a question of if, but of when. We know it's going to happen, but when is it going to be? Right off the bat, somewhere midway down the road, near the end of it. Who's it going to affect? Is it going to take out some of these folks who are on the cut line? The guys that may have a chance of actually making it in based on points, and is it going to put them all the way in the back? That is a scary, scary possibility. Number two, you may expect to see some drivers up front we wouldn't normally. Guys who have been running mid-pack all the way, maybe even farther. You might actually see some of the RWR cars running up front. That's not impossible for Daytona. You may very well see Justin Haley get his first win. There's a strong chance the RFK cars might be running up front. I wouldn't mind that one bit. Expect to see guys up front you wouldn't normally, and really question how they handle that pressure. Number three, the last lap pass. Daytona's a track where the last place you want to be in the last lap is P1. The guys behind you have so much control where they can sometimes push you, pull you, move you. You don't know if you want to be first, second, third. It's a scary, scary thought. One more thing I want to mention for anybody that's not watching the radar. There is serious weather concerns, not only for this weekend, but even the coming week. Expect the chance that this may get moved to a Sunday start time or even a Monday. They are going to try tooth and nail to get this race in. If they can find a 3-hour pocket inside of this absolute cluster that's coming down to Daytona Beach, they will squeeze it in as hard as possible.
Well, it is that time where myself and Dan make our picks for the upcoming race. We are selecting for the end of the regular season, the race at Daytona. Keep your eye on everybody in this field, might I add. But we do have to make picks for an individual driver each. Dan, you won last week with Chris Buescher. A heartbreaking victory, but a victory nonetheless. So, who do you have winning?
Yeah, now it's on to that point for all of our picks. So who's it going to be? Well, I said it before. I said it a while back who I was going to pick for this week, and I'm sticking true with that. My money's back on the 17 Chris Buescher. So the main reason is, well, why firstly? Well, he may not have won since 2016 in a rain-shortened Pocono, but I watched him last year at Daytona in a comparable position to where he is now. This man was using his car like a shield, throwing it around in ways that is almost disrespectful. He has no problem whatsoever basically bringing the car home in pieces or in just one solid chunk. It doesn't matter what he has to do to try to get this win to lock himself into the playoffs. He wants it. And I think he might be able to make a run, probably not past 12, but I think he might be able to actually get something done if he makes it into the playoffs. He's my pick. I think he's going to make it into the playoffs and get the win all in one weekend. But now, back on you, Elliot. Who are you picking for this weekend?
That's completely understandable. If there's going to be any way he's going to get it done. Well, I said this in the season. I fully believed it would only be the super speedways. He's proved me so wrong. He can race anywhere. But so can this next driver, Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell, coming off a career best season, he's in threat of not making the playoffs. But can I just remind you, he won the Daytona 500 last year by putting himself in position. Where do we go to? Daytona. Yes, it's a shorter race. Yes, he'll have to be up front a lot more. There's only one spot left in the playoffs. I believe Michael McDowell could fill that place. Well, unfortunately, it's time to end the video. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, yeah, thank you a ton for having me, man. Always a pleasure to be here with you. So, anybody watching at home, you can follow me on Twitter at CupDatesDan. I've been a little bit more active there recently. It's definitely a lot more fun trying to at least communicate thoughts and any opinion I'm having, just put it out there and see what the ether has to say about it. But as always, leave your comments down below. Definitely would love to hear from you. Let me know how wrong I am, how right he is. Always loves getting some conversation going with some folks. But Elliot, thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure as always. And everyone watching at home, you all folks have a good evening.
Make sure you subscribe to the NASCAR Cut Dates YouTube, Instagram and TikTok channels. And make sure you tune in every Friday night at 9 PM Eastern Time, where the Outcast Racing League continue their playoff stretch and Nitro continues his farewell tour. As for now, I've been Elliot Camis. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. Last Friday, the lights closed on the regular season, the engines switched off, but you could still hear the hunger.
You gotta be willing to go the extra mile. Take risks. Gamble. And sometimes, you just gotta be willing to rattle some cages to get her done.
We just need a clean race, and to throw the right moves at the right times.
Rivalries that began in the beginning, still burning as bright as ever.
I would definitely throw a bumper at somebody.
This week, the playoffs begin. Everything you thought you knew about the word intensity, pressure, forget it.
I'm here to race. I'm here to race as hard as I can. I want to do it the Mark Martin style.
Would definitely move someone out of the way.
I've found 3 different ways to lose it, so I'm willing to do just about anything.
The playoffs begin now. It all begins here.
Hey, what's up? This is Kyle Larson, and this is the Outcast Racing League.